or in the Greenbelt. Did you end up doing that?
No, because I got no response from anyone else. So I
Okay.
kind of said, yeah, next week that could be him.
Where's our Dennis?
It is. How are you doing?
Oh, good. How you feeling?
All right. Like smack. How do you feel?
I'm okay. I'm a-okay. We're about ready to roll here.
Okay.
I think, we're missing Ron, right? But Ron will probably show up in a minute, though.
Okay.
All right, hang on a second.
Sure.
Okay, you guys want to get this show started? Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. Now we have the roll call thing going around, so if everybody signed in, that'd be great. We have some members, Dennis, of the public, three folks here. And so what we'll do is the third item on the agenda is public comment. And so what I'll do is I'll ask you guys, and I'll start with you, if you can introduce yourself and then go ahead and ask questions or express yourself, however you like.
That's fine.
Okay, so go ahead.
My name is Ed Jimenez. I live at 35 Los Feliz Drive. I've been a resident of Phillips Ranch, Pomona, for 35 years. And it's been a great community. I've raised 2 daughters there. My 2 daughters moved back. They are now residents of Phillips Ranch.
Wow.
We have grandkids that will be attending Ranch Hills. So it's been a great community for us. I love the diversity. I love the fact that it is a community. All our families have blended together in the neighborhood. It's something that a lot of my friends and associates have mentioned that they're envious of. So along with that, I've seen the ranch when it first started. It was absolutely beautiful. And I've seen it deteriorate, and it's rather distressing. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I've already voted. And I'll tell you, I voted yes. No problem. The minute I got it, I put a yes on it. The reason I did that is because there's maybe 4 points. One is I'm investing in the community. I'm investing in the security of the community. You look at fuel modifications. Okay, I've noticed the correspondence has been going back and forth. And they've been talking about safety and the dreads of society and the homeless issues, okay? So with the fuel modifications, you eliminate the fire issue. Now, I am involved with a Southern California fire management team. I've been on numerous fires where communities have been wiped out. Mother Nature is going to do its thing, and we're not going to stop it, okay? So we may feel that we're isolated, we're protected, and we have a fire station in the ranch. When resources are stretched, they're not coming. Now, with the fuel modifications that we had prior to what it's at right now, you can see that the trees were trimmed. The green belt was looking great. And you just can't look at the green belt. You have to look at the surrounding perimeters. You have to look at the hillsides. Because when things are set up in the perfect alignment for fire interface, one home goes, you're going to see a rapid succession of others, potentially. It's all potential. So if I invest in the community and save the heartache of seeing another home lost, it's fine. I would rather put that money towards my neighbors. It's an investment to me. It's an investment to my community. And so I look at it in those terms. Now, when you eliminate the overgrowth, you eliminate places where homeless will encamp. You eliminate the issues with the wildlife. Before we were able to see the coyotes over by the easement areas and things, they'd be coming down to the hill, to the back of the homes and stuff. We'd be able to see them. We knew they were there. But at least you had a path, and you did have a little bit of a buffer because the sprinklers were working. Okay? So you could also look at it in those terms. It'll open things up, be able to have a sense of security, be able to see who's behind where, or where the encampments may be, and be able to eliminate that. So there's safety on that end of clearing brush. The other thing is the health and welfare of our community. I used to work out on that green belt, run the hills, ride the bike, use all the stations. My kids do it. My son-in-law, who now moved into Phillips Ranch, is a Pasadena fireman. He's using it. So it's an investment for the young. It's an investment for us older. We can walk it. So it's a health issue. People may not think that, may not be concerned with it, but that's how I look at it. It's a benefit to the community to get out, walk, enjoy your neighborhood, meet new people, and be part of a better, stronger community. What was the other part? Okay, so there was the health, there's the brush mitigation. Oh, property values. I have to, protect my investment. Okay, so basically I'm just investing back into the community. And for this amount of money that's being asked, I know it could be a hardship on some people. But really, when you think about it, if a catastrophic fire did come through, what's your insurance rates going to be? What is it going to cost you to rebuild your house when the insurance company only gives you 60% of the appraised value?
Right.
Okay, so if you can mitigate a little fraction of that potential for the small cost, it's a benefit. I'm willing to pay it, not a problem. And again, if it takes the heartache of one home not being lost in the community, I'm all for that. But basically, I just want to see our community strengthen again. I don't like really seeing what's been going back and forth. I can't help that. Everybody has opinions. But I'm just here to support what the committee's done for the community, for us. And I just wanted to be here for that, to show my support.
Great, thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
That means a lot. You may want to think, if it passes, there will be an establishment of an oversight committee, and we'll be looking for people that would like to be involved and being able to work with the city, Michael and his crew, in terms of the allocation of resources and the prioritization, as we improve things. So that'd be great. So thanks a lot. Dennis, you still with us? I guess we lost him.
I am, and that's my former next door neighbor. Thank you, Ed.
Oh, there we go.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
He sent in a shill.
Next, if you can introduce yourself and let us know where you're.
My name is Doug Ward. I've been a resident of Phillips Ranch since 1991, so not quite as long as you, but own 2 homes in the ranch, and my current home is on Latory Drive and on the hill. And we have quite a big property with a huge easement behind. And I agree with the fire portion of it, and I've been paying out of my pocket for years now to mitigate mine and my neighbors as well. I have 2 problems. I haven't voted yet, but the reason that I hesitate is because I understand there's a new representative. I understand that there's an ad hoc committee and people are looking into things to change. But with my experience with the city of Pomona, I have no real comfort level that paying extra is going to take away from what I've been paying out of my pocket over the years. And my property taxes are an average of $1,500 more than most every other resident in the ranch that pays the assessment and gets the green belts taken care of. And
because you have a large lot.
Yeah, I have a half acre.
Yeah.
And a portion of it is downslope to drainage. And some of my neighbors have petitioned the city and actually taken over their easement. They wouldn't give me mine back because they said my property line would come too close to the drainage there. So again, I've just been paying out of my pocket, trees trim, brush mitigation every year for 18 years now that I've been on Latory. Before it wasn't a problem. I was like most of the rest of everybody, and the maintenance for the green belt and everything, that was all fine, and I paid my assessment. I'm not opposed to paying more of an assessment, but I need some kind of reassurance that these things are gonna get taken care of, and the $1,500 that I've been putting out personally every year is gonna be covered with the new assessment. I pay the $700 now that they're talking about later on that everybody's complaining about. If I could be rest assured that my property and the easement was gonna be taken care of. The fire is one issue, and I bought my lot because it's a view lot. With the growth of the eucalyptus trees and the pepper trees that are sprouting up everywhere. There's a California oak down there that I haven't done anything with, and because I don't know the laws with the California oak, I don't want it removed. It's a beautiful tree, but I'm assuming it could be trimmed and thinned every once in a while to, keep the open, the view and everything. But that's my problem is I just haven't. I've been to city council meetings over the years. I've talked to my representative. I've done everything that I thought that I could do other than just continue to fork out the money every year to keep the fire abatement and the trees down to a level where I retain my view. So that's my biggest concern.
So let me just,
Just above you on Westbrook.
Did you return my turtle?
Yes.
I
Talk about community, right?
There you go.
Need a turtle
He's
corral.
He's even bigger now.
he didn't hold it for hostage, did he? So let me just make an observation, and then I'll open it up to the bigger group, though. I will tell you, when we started the ad hoc committee, when we all came together, I think there was a general suspicion, maybe not so much with Brian, because Brian's been involved, but a little bit of that suspicion was like, the city, it's a big cluster, you know what? And it's maybe in the past, none of these people here, represented here, were involved with the things that happened over the years where there was what I would kind of characterize probably as mismanagement or lack of management. And so there was that one thing. And then the other thing is working with them, it's been an eye-opener for me, and I think for the guys on the committee. These guys, they have our best interest at heart. That assessment fund, though, can only be spent there. It can't be moved to the general fund for anything else. And so that's why we thought when we made a recommendation, if we had this oversight committee working with Michael and his team, then we will have a direct conduit. We'll know what's priority, what's getting done, what's not. And also in that budget too is staffed with a person that's going to be a hands-on. I forget, Michael, how they characterize the job description of the person that we funded or we're proposing it. But
their title is going to be lead landscape maintenance technician. So it's a lead position. It'll be responsible for both hands-on stuff, but also just they're fully dedicated in the ranch, overseeing, making sure the contractors are doing their work.
Yeah.
Michael, can you introduce yourself and what your position is?
I'm Michael Sled. I'm the Parks and Facilities Manager. We were over between Willowbrook and La Torre a couple months ago looking at something, trying to clear it. Yes, there's definitely a lot of stuff that can be cut back.
So, but those are my two observations. But if any of the guys though have any other thoughts,
I'd like to reflect that same sentiment when we started this about a year and a half ago, and it was launched out of a community meeting 2 years ago, where we were all kind of pounding our fist on the table about how terrible the maintenance had been, and nothing's being touched, and your trees in the back of your home are not being trimmed, and it's fire hazard, and even those that had been trimmed, it's like all they did is cut them and then throw all the debris back up on the hill. Well, that's not saving us from any fire danger. We all came in a bit cynical as well, and talking to and understanding how it all works and where the shortcomings are and where the finances didn't cover enough for us to get a reputable, a good contractor in. I think it is fair to say Green Tech is currently there with its total of 8 employees to try to cover 240 acres. Just can't do it. They haven't done it. And that we have new city representation. Introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, I'm Rene Guerrero. I'm the interim public works director. So I've just been involved with this since our previous director left in late January. So
Right. And you know, we got a new mayor, we got a new council member. I don't know if you'd ever reached out to Steve Lestro about perhaps some of your concerns, maybe the old representative, but not.
Yeah, no, not
Okay.
since Steve's been in.
I think there is just a new, fresh attitude. Also, lastly, I think in trying to address the concerns of the well-deserved cynicism about trusting the city, because they didn't have a great track record prior to this. And that is the insistence we had that there needs to be the Citizens Oversight Committee. So even if you somehow don't trust necessarily what the city may be doing, we're hoping there's either a 7 or 11, I guess it's got to be an uneven number, oversight committee of residents from the community who will actually observe, watch, report, get together in meetings, have direct contact with cities. So you're going to have community residents who got your back in this particular case, which is something we never had before. Never had that kind of direct input into this. So we recognize that being an issue, and it tried to address it as best we can as far as reporting that there's been no misappropriation of funds. It doesn't go into the general fund. There is an auditing trail of everything. And a matter of fact, that oversight committee would look into that audit, you know, and review it and be able to see where is the money going, where is it being spent. So I know I've probably rambled too much, but I think we've tried to, the best we thought we could as volunteers, to come up with some way to ease the concerns that that there's somebody who has our back in this whole thing.
Anybody else?
Bob Flappy, been a resident of Pomona since 1981. Here to thank the committee for your efforts in the work that you put together in this proposal. Long overdue to address the issues that we've had at the ranch in terms of that maintenance itself. Purpose for me being here is I have two questions of the committee, if it's appropriate.
Yeah, sure.
Answer. The relation of the CPI with Prop 218, I fully understand the economics of future expense growth. Get that. Upon approval of this, when would be if projected, the next time that the homeowner could vote on increases in the future? Or,
If it's rejected?
no.
No, if it's approved.
If
It's
it passes,
approved,
okay.
and I understand the CPI trigger takes effect, I believe, in the third year.
Yes.
Yeah. Would there be any time in the future that would trigger the homeowner vote or the similar process that we have here? That would be my first question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Second question, upon approval, which I'll be honest with you, I'm in favor of addressing this, but I like to read between the lines as well, so CPI was one. The next is the definition of improvements, when we talk about improvements to the assessment district. Now, I would say to date, or my experience since 1981, has been maintenance and repair. Right? Does the dynamics utilizing the term improvements change, or potentially open up to other items outside of maintenance and repair?
That's a great question. And when we put together the budget numbers and discussed it, the focus really was more restoring it to what the ranch was, say, in the late 80s. But that's not to say, given an adequate reserve, that working with the city, that they would be amenable to doing other improvements, revenues permitting.
Yeah, the draft budget that they put together included, I think, it was either 5 or 10% that would go towards a capital
Yes.
reserve. So that would be
Yeah.
improvements.
Yeah. I think in the budget proposal, it's like 150,000 set aside for CapEx. Prior to, or the history, which I'm not aware of, was there ever CapEx set in the budget, in prior budgets?
I don't know going that far back because, they had been running at a deficit for so long. I don't know. I don't
I'm sure they
remember.
had to change within the line item.
Yeah.
So
So I don't remember, to be honest.
And we can certainly get that answer for you.
It's not.
Yeah.
important. I think I get that.
Yeah, I think on the improvements, in the spirit of how I've gone through this process, I mean, conversations of the fact that in the maintenance contract, there's supposed to be at the ends of streets, the quote monuments that are kind of there. There's supposed to be kind of annual color introduced and stuff.
Right.
And I think to perhaps some of the newer residents, they might not even recognize that that stuff is now missing and not even there because
You're absolutely right.
I don't think they recognize what it used to look like in that sense. So improvements may be better stated as I think you said it, restore the ranch, bring it back to where it was. And then again, I can't emphasize enough, in my opinion, the potential power of this oversight committee in directing and guidance of, okay, we'd like to plant some more trees, or we'd like to do this, or we'd like to do that, which is out of the scope of just maintenance. And there be, help guide the city in this is the direction we want to go, and we'd like money spent that way. Whether it's getting rid of those horrible replacement factory lights that were put, and get us back to what it used to be. That was our charm and character. Things like that. I just see such a tremendous opportunity for the residents of Phillips Ranch to have a voice where they never really had a voice before in regards to how the money is being spent, where reserves go. Again, it has to be used in Phillips Ranch.
Right.
It cannot be moved into general funds. There's no, not even, our council representative can say, hey, I want to use that for this over here. You can't do that. So, and I don't know, addressing the CPI question you had. Could you state that again?
But the question was more, I'm sorry.
Well,
Well, upon approval of the assessment district fees, we know that the CPI doesn't kick in until the third year. At what point beyond the third year would the property owners be solicited for fee increases? Now, my assumption would be this, is that the true operating expense, the budget exceeds CPI calculation, and we start seeing a depletion within that total budget. But is there a schedule or any thought given of that, or is this really the design of CPI not needing any future need
Yes.
for,
It's the latter. The idea was if we can build in this CPI indicator, cap it. Now, in the event that inflation kind of ran away from us for a period of time, then we would have an erosion in our budget. And so that would just be a cost of the way we set it up. But the idea was, let's set the CPI indicator so we don't have to go through the process, because the only way to change it in the future is do this all over again. So that was the reason.
I think it was the intent of the ad hoc that we don't believe we came into this to come up with a temporary solution. This is what can we do to fix this for a longer term solution. I will say this, under Prop 218, as we were told by the consultants and the city attorney, as a resident and a citizen, you have the right at any time to organize and pull together community to bring this to a vote. So it's never been taken away in that sense. You always, again, we could be 2 years into this and maybe not even had a CPI increase, and residents can pull together and say, we want a ballot created and we want to do something about this.
And I'll just at the end, I'll add that, for Public Works, many of our services are we contract out for those services, right? We just don't have the personnel to do that. And so typically when we see increases in bid prices, let's say from a contractor, they're going to charge us more than they did 3 years ago. It's typically based on CPI.
Yes.
And so that's why we felt comfortable that, seeing the CPI increase will begin to match what a contractor may start charging and increasing their costs.
Beyond that, the contracts are usually bid to where they're not eligible to ask for a CPI until after the first 3-year term has expired. So during those first 3 years, the CPI on the assessment would be continuing to accrue. So you're going to be building up that little bit of buffer as you go over, and then it'll be a catch up, and then like it'll be so kind of staggered. But the intention is, that it should hopefully not have to be increased again beyond this.
And Michael, can you speak a little bit to, we did go out and the best we could request some requests for some proposals. A lot of contractors don't like to put out a request for a proposal if there's really not a contract there to get. So it was a little difficult for us to find people that wanted to participate. But in using qualifiers, like we want to move forward, of you're a reputable company, you have enough employees, you have backup if you need to pull in more people because of some big storm comes through and takes out trees. Can you remember and recall like what even that lowest bid was? Because I recall it being like 3 times more than what we're currently paying.
No, it wasn't quite that much, but it was like 120 something thousand more than what we pay now.
Yeah,
And that's just for the landscaping. So then you have the tree part separate from that.
Right.
But when we took those bids and used them kind of as the midpoint of them as an estimate for what we think the landscaping should cost for the sort of level service we want, and then put together some numbers on what the tree budget probably should be to have a routine maintenance schedule plus do all the emergency work using average numbers from the past, because there basically hasn't really been a routine going on. It's all been just addressing items, like trying to okay, we need to go and cut down these trees, and then we need these ones need crown reductions, and not like having a grid going on consistently. So taking kind of those numbers and adding them in with what it would cost to have a grid and adding it to that, and just kind of coming up a bit separate from getting these estimates, it ended up being within like a few $1,000s basically of what the actual estimates came in that we got. Within a few $1,000s of what the CPI ended up being as a separate calculation.
Yes. So we did a separate CPI calculation, and it kind of verified it, backstopped it that we're on the right track.
We kind of went, wow, I think we did something right. If we came out that close.
Yeah. Inflation calculations are.
If I can,
actually do
touch
need
back on the improvements.
Mhm.
I think that was a great discussion on the CPI and thought process on that. Correct me on this, and this is an assumption I'm making. But, some time ago, there was a median that was installed between Phillips Ranch Road and Village Road.
Mhm.
Never existed before. Does the maintenance of that fall under the assessment district?
Michael?
I believe it does, though.
Yeah.
The landscaping,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the CapEx to install it.
No.
Right. Yeah, there's
Here's-
many of
here's-
us
here's
who
the
wish
reason-
that never
here's the
happened.
reason for my question. It kind of points to definition
Uh-huh.
of improvements through the oversight committee in the future. If recommendations are made in a similar fashion to create an area that would increase costs, that's really the question I'm asking. And that, something that would fall outside of maintenance and repair, but let's say a development of an item in that 240 acres that, this is a great idea, but it would represent additional maintenance and repair costs. Is that possible?
I would think it is
I think
possible.
it's possible.
But then again, that's where our oversight committee would
Yeah.
kind of kick in and make sure that the city understands what the residents' desire is.
Yeah.
But it's theoretically possible.
And hopefully we can, it was not the intent that this ad hoc committee roll over into the oversight committee. Hopefully we get and spur on new, you know,
I hope you do.
yeah.
We're tired
And-
of it.
Exactly. I will say this, but if I was on the oversight committee and we had a problem with a tree, do you think I'd be a pain in your ass?
Sure.
We hear
Yeah.
from you. We hear from you.
So, again, there has been some discussion that perhaps Dennis, who is our chair, and myself might spend a short period of time with the development of this oversight committee, just to give them some of our benefit of our history of going through all of this. But it is neither one of our long-term intents to be part of the oversight committee. We hope we can hand it over to others in the community. You know, and quite frankly, I mean, some of those who have been perhaps most critical, it's probably a great opportunity for them to get the experience we did of coming in with, oh, you guys, and then go, oh, I get it now, okay. You know, and experience that as well.
Well, let me close with this. Mr. Jimenez, that was profound when your view of the ranch and your history of the ranch. And it's very profound when you talk about investment back in the community, in the city. And outstanding. I came in with an open mind and an open ballot.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the input from residents and the input from the board. You got my vote.
Oh,
Well,
great. Thanks, Bob.
I appreciate the hard work that you've done and moving forward. And, again, I was hung up on the contracts, and I did that for many years for a large corporation. Sometimes within the language itself, we learn. So it's fair, I think, to at least entertain those type of questions, and you did a wonderful job answering that to my satisfaction. So again, I'll make that commitment, such as Mr. Jimenez said.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your comments tonight.
Well, don't put him on the spot, Barry. Come on.
No, I planned on voting yes anyway. I just wanted my voice heard is all. I want my property values to keep going and up, and I want the ranch to be, the ranch to burn down. I want things to be nice and for my family and everybody else's family to utilize. It's just
We've
still
been here
sitting
40
here that I've been 18 years paying and paying and paying more than anybody else, and want to feel assured that that's not going to be the case moving forward. That I pay more
Right.
and continue to pay more.
And we have heard, which was kind of, I'll say, speak for myself, surprising to me, that some residents have, like yourself, been paying for that themselves.
Yeah.
And even that some people have purchased from the city that land to say, you know what, just let me take responsibility for it. Yeah, and that's a shame it had to get to that point. And it's a shame that in 2008, when this vote came up as well, that I think what's really different is there was this citizens committee looking into this, as opposed to before, the kind of ballot just kind of showed up. I think there was one community meeting, and then the ballot showed up on your doorstep, and it's like, what is this? You
And it
know?
was 2009.
Yeah, and it was 2008. So I want to just thank all three of you. You know, even if your answer would have been no, the respect I have for coming in here and asking those questions. And I think that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Hey.
Makes the ranch great.
Yeah. Hey, Dennis.
Can I ask
Oh,
one question?
yeah.
Hang
Before-
Just the ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
They're not letting anybody in.
It's after, yeah. I think, don't they close at 6?
Yeah.
Yeah, have a seat. Bob, you said you had one more question?
Yes.
Maybe just a suggestion that goes beyond the scope of this committee here, but the future committees we just form. I believe there's 3 areas that are defined in this 240 acres, open space, field modification, and turf. Maybe there's something else.
There's slope.
Ground slope.
Ground covers.
I'm sorry?
Slope/ground covers the four.
In the expenditures as we move forward, is it possible to break those into cost centers? So when we would look back to see what those costs were in those defined areas?
I mean, they are priced out now within the contract,
They
like
are.
they bid on per acre of the different landscape maintenance type.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, how
that's
different-
actually-
Could the city do that? Could they break it out in the budget?
So,
Just an accounting.
The last one on an annual basis, but I know that that's unfair because there's some areas that don't require that much and others that certainly would cost much more.
Yeah, it's broken out in the contract by how much they bid. One of the interesting things is if you go back and look at when they bid that contract out, all the people who bid wildly divergent numbers. Like their overall numbers might end up being roughly the same, but the amount they bid per acre for each thing was all over the place. So once you dug down the numbers, which the impression that gave me is they really didn't have any idea on what they were going to be maintaining. So they started from the end with the number they wanted to bid at and worked back from it. Yeah. So, but yes, that is something to.
And
Okay.
one other thought,
Sure.
I hate to find this.
No problem.
Part of this lighting district, the only question I have on this is the poles on my street that I'm familiar with over 30 years, I had to call at least once on each pole to have the fixture replaced, are maintained by Southern California Edison. I never understood that relation itself. Do they own that capital expense of that and the infrastructure? And I can only speak to, I know who's servicing it is a Edison employee. Help me understand where we're gonna go with that.
yeah, I mean, basically, they do own that. That is their facility, that is their improvement, and we're basically paying, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, and they were basically.
It's been Ron's thing.
It is a Ron thing. One of my other staff members
Yeah.
kind of deals with that.
But essentially, we as the city pay Edison for that fixture
Yeah.
maintenance and energy. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so we have, Dennis, we had somebody from the community that came in late. You want to introduce yourself and
My name is Brian Zoricki. I know Brian from football.
and did you have any comment you'd like to make to the group or question or?
I had a question, just like this gentleman on lighting.
Mm-hmm.
I went through the documents everybody's posting.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, but I don't speak engineerese, so I can't understand what they say is a general benefit, how they come up with the general benefit, and what they come up with as a special benefit. Their calculations are esoteric to me. They're not something I can put into layman's terms. So I'm just trying to determine, why is it that all of a sudden Zone A has been determined to be a special benefit for lighting when it never has been for 30 some odd years? And now, just because we're going to incorporate Zone B into this new lighting district, now Zone A has special benefit in lighting.
And I will, sorry guys, punt really to the city on that because the methodology that they use, it's Greek to me. Why one is better than the other, and I know somebody in social media was criticizing the methodology used. In this particular case, I generally would defer to the expert in whatever methodology they thought appropriate. But there is a reason, and I don't remember from the report exactly what that reason was, why it needed to be in an analysis. It was similar to Zone B, and so therefore it should be included. So I don't know. I'd have to punt to the city. But I will say though, let me just say this though. When I look at what we're trying to achieve in its totality,
Oh yeah.
I just was like, okay,
I know what you're
even if
talking
it's
about.
unfair, this is what I thought, my personal thing. Even if it's unfair, I gotta get this thing looking better, and so I'm willing just to do it. That was kind of my analysis.
Can I jump in this one? Again, it was in all honesty, brutal honesty, it was a very confusing thing to us on the committee here. And it took another meeting with the consultants and the city attorney to help guide us through what's going on here. And as they looked, and as you know, there's been some documents of engineer reports from 98 and earlier stuff, and our city attorney, who is a new one, by the way, has looked at it and shook her head going, I don't know why it said it was no benefit. And to be really just kind of basic, it's like you step out of your home at 8 o'clock at night, there's your light, you can see my house, it's clearly a benefit of some point. And then there's a percentage that's applied that says as a resident, as a homeowner in that area, there's a certain percent that benefits you.
Right.
To the general public who may be driving through our neighborhood, that's another percentage, and you guys don't pay for that. That's like a general public benefit. So for instance, our green belts, even that I believe, I don't want to, I got to be so careful because we get, you're misleading us. I believe even that's a percent because general public does get some benefit from the green belt. Somebody can drive in from even different cities and enjoy and exercise along the green belt and stuff. So there's a percentage applied. So
I'm with you on that. I read that part of the engineer's report, but to me, it doesn't really make sense in a basic form. If they were to tell me, okay, the general benefit is calculated that for every so many square miles there are 10 streetlights, then that would be considered general benefit. We have maybe 10 times that many streetlights in our area, therefore we have a special benefit. That's how I look at it. This thing about how many cars pass through, who's a resident, who's a non-resident, who's passing through, that's all poppycock as far as I'm concerned.
It's confusing.
There are references to major roads. And so I tried to look up that subsection 8-2 or 7-2-2 for the major roads or what they're talking about. It's not even in that report. It stops at 7.1.1. So, all I'm saying is that it goes to the credibility of the report as far as I'm concerned. And I'll admit, it's a small portion. We're only talking 15 months.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal, but to me, it adds to the credibility. I have no problem with landscaping. I know we need that.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I think what you're bringing to the table is very fair, questioning of that. Is it something to fall on the sword for? No, but there's the principle of it. Now, is it something that perhaps the oversight committee can dig deeper in and go, what the heck is going on here? And try to deeper understand that specific issue? I mean, we are, in a sense, generalists.
Yes.
In this thing. So, and none of us are specific. Philip, you may be the closest to an expert here that he does this exact duty for another city.
Yeah, I have a similar position to what Michael has. I oversee the landscape maintenance contractors. We have work for the city of Ontario. We have different districts. We have districts 1 through 4, and within our budgets, we actually included line items for lighting. So it's very, very common for every home in those districts to actually pay a percentage to the landscape, to the lighting, to the water. It's broken down.
I do know what added the difficulty and why there's an A and a B is these were later developments. Some of us have been here as long as, this was some of the last developments that came in. And I'll tell you what, guys, man, you've got to really scratch your head going, what the heck was the city doing back then? What the heck decisions were going on?
Zone B, was that the end of Capeller's development?
I'm sorry?
I think that was
Yes.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I know what area you're talking about.
Yeah, so it did somebody miss it? Did it fall out of, the people were not even thinking like, oh yeah, we got to do this. But it was Proposition 218 that put the city in a place where legally we're not allowed to charge different or, B and A not to pay that proposition said we have to evenly and fairly charge everybody. So the city was kind of put in a position going, guys, I'm sorry, we got to stick this in. We got to come into compliance with Proposition 218. And, historically too, Phillips Ranch residents paid for, and the assessment fee paid for the parks. And because we were becoming so short-funded and not having enough money to pay for the maintenance, the city, kudos to them, stepped in and said, okay, we'll take that over. Yeah. Well, as the first proposal came in front of us, lo and behold, parks were back in it. And we said, this is not going to fly with the community. I mean, we do have to us, it's not going to fly to us either. And we were able to talk to the mayor, city manager, and everybody and talk them to remove that from the proposal and continue the city's responsibility of maintaining the parks. Country Crossing, it's Phillips Ranch Park now, half of Phillips Ranch Park. And Country Crossing, there's even a little piece, a little bit up higher on the hill, up above Ranch Hills, up there. Yeah.
Playground?
Yes.
It's kind of, where a lot of parents wait to meet the kids after access to a different street to get to it up there. Yeah. We've been able to get some concessions from the city that has, in an attempt to try to make this a easier to swallow bitter pill, if that's the right term for it.
I just think it's unfortunate that the smaller things are starting to eat away at the credibility of the whole project that we're trying to accomplish here. But if I think I'm not that sophisticated, but if I can't figure it out, I'm not a dummy, but I'm trying to figure it out by reading the documents. I'm not seeing how it's being justified. Maybe that goes to maybe future information dissemination, that it be brought out more in layman's terms so that we don't get questions like that where people are going to be questioning what they're reading.
Right, and smarter people than me, Bob here, and Ryan Stevenson. I mean, their post, it's like, I don't understand all the engineerese that's going into the question here, and that's when we were calling city. It's like, help! What do we say? How do we respond? Because I don't know if I understand all this, And I know Ryan Stevenson works for Southern California Edison.
Oh, is that his thing?
So I think he's got a little bit of he's an engineer, so he's speaking in those terms, and he knows a little bit about that, but there's a difficulty in letting go that, quote, it says we do not have to, and it's like, yeah, but times have changed. Engineer reports have changed. Benefits have been assigned, and laws have been put in place where we have to now consolidate those payments.
While I was gone, did you guys talk about what we posted on the
No, not
the
yet.
website? Okay, so I left to go make copies of, speaking of engineerese, I'm the interim public director. And this has all been a learning experience for me, and embarrassingly so. I mean, I'm learning too, and just as much as this committee has asked questions, we ask questions constantly of our consultants on this. So we, in kind of response to some of the common questions asked on social media, we asked our consultants and our city attorney to kind of put together a general response, which we kind of think might be not so engineering. I got copies here if anyone wants them, but that was posted on the website, and it does address
Posted on next
the
door.
lighting.
Pass this around.
And so it might be able to answer some questions maybe in more layman's terms, but that was our.
Was this the link that Steve Westros posted?
Probably, I think so.
Yeah.
Right?
I posted it word for word direct.
This is that same one that I
It's
put.
the front page of the city website, yeah.
That's why. So
Okay.
so it did explain.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, basically, the engineer that we hire, their entire job is to make sure that whatever the assessment is going to be fair and legal under current case law. And so that's actually the entire reason they exist. So in theory, whatever they're putting out there is designed to where if it does pass, will be legal, because these things do get challenged. People sue that it's not.
Sure.
Not, I mean, that's where the case law comes from. And so the changes that they have made are in an effort to make sure that whatever this changed assessment, if it happens, will be legal and will stand up to legal challenge. So it's, if I understood it really well, we wouldn't have to hire an engineer to do the assessment.
Yeah.
And it's kind of frustrating, but
Because now you've got your common residents that can't understand what this is.
Yeah.
And they have an input into this thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That makes it pretty difficult for you guys.
All right, any other comments on the matter?
One question.
Yeah.
No.
I don't believe you.
you're okay, Bob. You're all right.
During the discussions and taking a look at that entire area there, have there been any discussions or plans, maybe outside of the scope of work with the assessment district, of city-owned properties on Meadowview that were previously residential? So, when we talk about property values, and certainly I don't live on this street, but, it does have a relation to the area. Is there any talk on what the future may hold for that location?
There hasn't really been much talk, but we are well aware of those properties.
Yeah.
We don't know yet what to do with them. I know it's more of our HR, risk management, that kind of dealt with that whole lawsuit and everything that went through with that,
Right.
long before my time and Michael's time here. So we are aware of it. Because the city owns those properties, we have a vote as well in this assessment district, in this potential assessment district.
5 votes.
I think it's six. I think it was mistakenly said 5.
Oh, last night,
Last night, yeah. So there was an item on the staff report on the agenda last night asking council to authorize the city manager to vote yes.
Well, yeah, she
Right.
asked for, give me your recommendation of
recommendation.
how I should mark this ballot
Correct.
for those properties. And it went across, unanimously.
To say yes, to vote yes on that. But yeah, that doesn't necessarily address your question per se with what we're gonna do with those. So I don't have an answer for you.
Bob, we toured in the very beginning. We took 2 of our meetings and hopped in a van and saw more of Phillips Ranch than I have ever seen before. I saw areas I've never been to before in looking at all these areas that are covered by the assessment. And we went to that property and we looked at it and jokingly, I think Meg said, I can't hear what you're saying. I think I said, wow, this would have made a great dog park. But with that being said, I think to look to that future, because we all saw it as, wouldn't it be a great park or just a little park and some benches, maybe a gazebo, something like that, repurpose it. We're never going to be able to build homes back on it. But I think that's something, an outreach to our city council member, Steve Lestro, to get a campaign kind of moving forward as to what could we use that property for? What can we help, push along the city or try to spearhead something, again, whether it's a park, some exercise equipment or something, because right now it's kind of blight. It's just bare open dirt,
And here kind of goes back to one of your earlier questions about any other future improvements that would then have to be added to the scope of maintenance. And that could be, this property could be one of them. Who knows, depending on what's decided upon. But Brian's right. I mean, ultimately, you could reach out to Councilmember Lestro, and then ultimately it's a council decision on what to do with that piece of property.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, hang on. One follow-up question,
Sure.
and then I want to go to her, and then we're going to cut off the public comment so we can move forward with our agenda. But go ahead.
My question is on on the landscaping assessment, the breakout of the costs that are gonna be involved for the increase. Is there an actual amount that has been considered to be what we would need to do to catch up with all of the maintenance that has been done for so many years? And then the second part of that, is there a projected time frame to complete that catch up to where we are back to normal maintenance?
We've gotten some rough estimates from the county for clearing the properties we have, and they were close to $750,000 to mitigate all the stuff that's grown up. Assuming depending on what happens with this, is going to decide what we do as far as going out for bid and stuff.
Let's just assume it's gonna pass.
Yeah. So we would go out, rather than probably go through the county, we would go out and secure 3 bids and see how those compare to the county, because the county subcontracts it out and they charge a fee for managing those contracts, so it would be cheaper to use contractors ultimately. Once we receive the funds, when do we start receiving the funds if it does pass?
I know Dina has told us probably
Yeah.
a couple times.
I think it goes, if approved, it shows up on 2020's
Yes.
tax rolls, and we pay it beginning in 2020.
I think you're right.
February roll.
Yeah. So therefore, we're gonna have a little bit of a lag, and we have to accumulate some of the funds before we can actually catch up with everything.
So we've started chewing through it with using the California Conservation Corps actually a bit at a time. We have another thing reloaded to once it'll go in July 1st once the new budget reloads for the year to continue doing more of that work. So once we actually, in theory, got the money, we would go out and get bids, and the time frame would be dependent on what the contractors, to a certain extent, said they could do it in. But I would, a year max. I wouldn't imagine it would take more than a few months once we got the money and were able to pay them to go out there and do it.
So here's where I'm going with this. Let's just say it takes 2 years to get back to normal maintenance, and we've covered everything else that we had to catch up on. Does that mean that the amount of money budgeted or that will be needed for the preceding years will come down?
As far as what would need to maintain, probably the estimates, yes, I'm guessing would go down because right now they're looking at it. I mean, that's presuming most of the estimates we've gotten are based on people actually going out and walking it and seeing the current condition and not just using in-house calculations per acre.
Because I'm looking for that glimmer of light in the tone here.
There we go now.
Yeah, so I mean, that would not, the amount going towards maintenance in theory should decrease, particularly as we, if the committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee can be looking for ways to decrease costs through actual changes in the maintenance regime.
Yeah, you have to change
Looking
the
for-
frequencies, the maintenance, the actual items in there would have
But your
to.
urgent items would be already addressed.
Yes.
So therefore, yeah, you'd be scaling back.
I mean, that wouldn't decrease the assessment automatically.
No,
It
no,
would
no.
create more money for
Yeah.
other
For
improvements.
It would create more money. Yeah.
And I think it's important to mention, I think Bob had asked a question, maybe it was in a personal meeting we had about, why such a big jump? Couldn't we have walked this in? And it became really important to us as a committee that the residents, in our opinion, wouldn't tolerate going, hey, we're 5 years into this, you've asked us for more money, not as much as we're asking currently, but I don't see any difference. If we stair-step this, we thought, one, we wouldn't have enough money to find a competent contractors, and two, the residents want to see some improvement. So it was even discussed that once we move forward and we start to get a better contractor in this, that they're going to focus on some really high profile areas and get in there and really make some improvements so that residents actually see a difference. We put some money into this, we're seeing a difference. Things are already starting to change. But we thought a slow pace, gradual, 10 years, it's better. We didn't think the residents would accept that.
Say, let's assume one, if they just haven't contacted me and we're gonna go by.
Oh, yeah,
their
okay.
word.
Bob, yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
check's in the mail.
Take it easy, Bob.
Hey, can we use that slogan? The
there you
check
go.
is in the mail.
So, as we move on, then let's move to the next item on 4. It's approval of the minutes for the May 7th meeting. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? And if I can get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, there you go, Dennis.
Oh, Dennis is still
with us.
there. All right.
Okay, so that approves the minutes of the meeting. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the ballot timeline. And actually, Dennis, if you want to chime in, you my recollection is you had that committed to memory. So we have what they're due July 1st, and then at
Correct.
that point, shortly thereafter, then NBS will basically get together, count them, verify it.
Yeah, so in fact, Dennis, if you don't mind, Shandy and I sat down about 4:45 to try to just write on a board the timeline and the schedule, just so that we can understand it. So yes, July 1st, there will be a public hearing. That ballots are due July 1st. On the next day, July 2nd, NBS will come in the council chambers from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. and they will open up the ballots and start taking count of the ballots.
And that's all open
And
to
it's
the
all
public.
open, all
Yeah.
open to the public. And that's what will happen on July 2nd. July 15th, at the council meeting of July 15th, that's when the ballot results will be announced. It's in fact another public hearing. And there will be a couple things that happen, depending on what the outcome of the ballots are. We'll either go back to the existing assessment districts as they are today, or we will move forward with the new district and the new assessment. That's about it. Dennis, have I missed anything?
No, I think you got it right on the head. Just a couple of comments about all the people that spoke. You know, what the city attorney put out there, and I'm not sure why it took so long for him to get this out, because it's kind of set us back. I wasn't pleased, honestly, with how long that took. It was like 3 weeks to get 6 paragraphs out. But it's an excellent report, and I think simply to answer the people that are worried about A and B, the consultant took in the new engineer report, it took all of the new Prop 218 into consideration, and they came up with a different conclusion. They had to. And simply put, that is, at least for the people I'm speaking with, done away with that. Going forward, guys, I think that Steve just did an outstanding job of putting together the thing that he put out on Nextdoor. And as I canvass my area, I'm going out with 2 things. I'm going to go out with that in hand. If Brian, you can tell me how I can print that off Nextdoor. And the other thing I'm going to go out with is the back of the ballot, showing people how they can change their vote if they voted no the first time. And I plan on handing those 2 pieces of paper out, which answers, I think, all the questions that have come up on Nextdoor over the last, 3 weeks that we've gone through a little bit of heck there. So that's my 2 cents on what we should do going forward, gentlemen.
Okay.
So only encourage those who want to change their no to a yes. This one too.
Oh, no. We're gonna
No,
get all the rest of
we'll make
those
sure
down.
everybody, regardless of which direction they want
Yeah.
to go, understand that they have the ability to change their vote.
Okay. Any questions about the timeline? From
No.
anyone? Okay. Any other comments before we adjourn? Go ahead.
I want to mention, we did follow up with the consultant about anybody who is missing, who did not receive their ballot by mail. If they contact the city or they contact the consultant, a new ballot can be issued, but you will be signing a form under penalty of perjury. You are the property owner and you have the right to
And
place that vote.
did I see it correctly that you have to have your parcel number to be able to get it, or?
She didn't mention anything about that. It was just address information.
Oh,
As
okay.
some of the
All right.
ballots were returned as non-deliverables, so Adina's gonna be looking into those and having those resent.
Okay.
But
All right.
anybody who needs a ballot, even an additional ballot, if they wanna change their vote, they can do that and they can turn in their ballot to the city.
Okay. Any other comments, guys? Any strategies? Eric, you and I worked the Jamboree. What a joy that was. No, actually, I don't mean to be cynical. Actually, it was a great time. It's interesting. I was thinking. We had a nice chat. It was people did come up, but what was interesting, and it reminded me of when I was in college. My wife and I used to do the Pepsi challenge at concerts and stuff. And Pepsi was very clever. They've discovered that only Pepsi drinkers would do the Pepsi challenge. And Pepsi drinkers like Pepsi because it was sweeter. And so it was a setup from the beginning. So our little thing we had going, the only people that came up to talk to us were people that were reinforcing, like, yes, I'm voting yes. So there was very few people that came up to where they had legitimate questions that they wanted to be answered and they were on the fence. It was really mostly just people that said, hey, thumbs up.
I believe it's more productive answering
Yes.
people that need to, hopefully we can help assist in clarifying, some of the questions they have. And I mean, I've always been a proponent of, I really kind of don't care how you vote, although I do care, because this is my community, but I just want you to be an informed voter. Not that I saw somebody's name on a yard, or I saw, these kind of things, that you've done a little bit of homework, and maybe that's led you to a different conclusion. That's fine, but at least you put some energy, effort in to try to understand it. Perhaps I know there was some questions that was being raised last night at City Council meeting regarding oversight committees. That, for instance, in the city's report, it wasn't really clearly laid out and specified it's going to be 11 committee members, it's going to be this and this and this. That is all something that happens after, if it gets approved.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And in fact, we had a little bit of discussion about that in the executive team meeting earlier this morning with the city manager, all the directors and the city manager, because it came up with the whole Fairplex thing, where there's another kind of oversight committee that's looking to be formed. So in the same vein that's being discussed, I'm sure the same thing will apply here. So how do we do that? Do we open it up to applications, and do we give council? I think we're leaning more towards, and this is not set in stone, but giving rather than give each council member an opportunity to appoint somebody. It's more of a group thing that the council can appoint a group, so that there's not any ideas of, I don't know, favorites. I mean, that was kind of what was being discussed today.
And I could imagine in the case of this assessment oversight that this would only be Phillips Ranch residents.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's what makes,
what's that?
in my opinion, that's what makes it a little weird to have all of council appointing
It's odd because
the committee. So I don't know. I think that's the kind of stuff that has to be how exactly it will be formed remains for discussion.
But the committee will be formed regardless of how the vote goes, right?
That was my impression as well, because if the vote does not pass, there's going to be.
How do I say it? I think it's desirable.
Yeah.
But I think now that the ballot has potentially been defeated, I believe it will take another effort to approach city council to say we'd like to form an oversight committee, period. I think it's built into our ballot, but if the ballot fails, I don't think it's an automatic that will still happen. I think
It's not an automatic. It would be. It would be my recommendation to start one, because there's going to be hard decisions to be made about what's going to happen.
And you know what? What a conduit for the community, right? It would be a great way for members of the community to be able to bring home the reality of the situation to the community. Because we're going to end up in this place again in another few years if this thing doesn't pass. We know it has to.
Well, yes.
Well, but
and I don't want to be here.
A few years from now, we'll be back. Somebody will be back.
Hey, gentlemen, it was part of our recommendation that the council approved that whether it passed or not, that there be an oversight committee.
That's what I remember.
Okay.
But I've been wrong in my memory. And what I understood, but I do remember that we did say that there should be an oversight committee, regardless of how the
we had
assessment vote goes.
because we had some discussion that maybe we would not dissolve right away, because
somebody from the community is going to have to get involved to decide where the money is going to be spent, what money we would get.
Yeah, whatever.
Irrespective if it's
The new assessment or the old assessment?
And I like the idea, period.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well,
All
we'll see
right.
if we get any volunteers.
Oh, I think we
I
will.
think we
will for
have.
sure. Yeah,
We
we've
have
run into
some.
in the community meetings. I've run into a number of people that.
For this committee, you only got 11. 12, I think.
Well, there is kind of a typical definition of, again, you might have heard of things like 7-Eleven Commission.
Yeah.
It's either 7 people or 11.
No, what I'm saying
Yeah.
is that there weren't that many people that volunteered for this.
Oh,
That's true. That's true.
That's why we were all.
but you know what though? How was it publicized though?
We were talking about community meeting. It was on the website. It was
on Nextdoor
Nextdoor.
about filling out the application.
on.
You had to fill out the application.
Yeah.
That's
I wonder if
always,
there's a better way to reach out to people. Though,
And then
you
it
know?
was, I think it was discussed in one of the council meetings because it was extended because there weren't enough people applying for this prestigious position.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I got a parking spot at least in the parking lot.
At the end, there was
maybe not.
there was
Maybe
12,
not.
and one was
Exactly. There's an open
disqualified
one.
because they didn't live in the assessment.
there was one person that couldn't be on the committee who wanted to be because
Yeah.
they live in those condos over by Diamond Ranch.
Yeah.
And that's not part of the assessment. They don't
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
any of the assessment. So that one person was excluded from.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think they took all takers.
Yeah. And I thought it was special.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
You
So-
thought you were special?
At that point, I did. So our next meeting is Tuesday, June 18th. So if everybody's gonna be around, that'd be great. Anything else before we adjourn? All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Dennis. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you guys so much for showing.
Yeah. Thanks.